past the hurdle. We have seen to pass the hurdle of COVID a little bit here, and I'm happy that our member Charles Reed is looking very well from his unfortunate accident. But I'm also glad that we have a new community representative sitting on our steering committee, Alberta Owens. Alberta, you have a couple of things you want to say before we go to Henry about your engagement in West Oakland?
Yes, hi everybody. I am a West Oakland resident. I've been a resident and homeowner for, may as well say 34 years. May will be 34 years that I have been in West Oakland. And I'm involved in the community in other areas. I belong to the Beat 6 NCPC, the Residential Action Committee for Hoover Foster Durant area. And I'm also a member and fundraising chairperson for Friends of Hoover Durant Public Library, as well as I sat on the education cohort for the CBA process. And I've been supporting the West Oakland Environmental Project and AB 617. So I've kind of been around a little bit, and I was in the health section before COVID hit. And somehow or another, when COVID hit, I didn't know that the meetings were still ongoing because I didn't get the notifications. But that's the area that I sat in prior to COVID. So it's going to be a pleasure working with you guys, and thank you for the warm welcome.
Thanks so much. Henry, want to
Awesome.
say a couple words?
Yeah, thanks, Randolph. Hello, everybody. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Henry Hilkin. I'm the planning director at the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. And I just want to welcome everybody tonight. Especially Ms. Owens, our newest member. Thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And for all of you, just really, really appreciate your time. You know, we're meeting at dinner time. We know evenings are precious. And so we really, really appreciate the time that you share with us. And so we have, this is kind of a new point on the agenda. We haven't done these welcomes in the past. And we thought it made sense because, you know, usually at these meetings, you see mostly the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project. And that's how it should be. West Oakland DIP is the leader of this process, right? So they should lead these conversations. But the Air District is still very committed, very engaged, working really hard behind the scenes. And so we just all thought it would be really important to sort of reinforce that with these sorts of joint welcomes. So again, really happy to see everybody. Appreciate your time. And I look forward to the discussion tonight. So
Awesome.
Randolph, back to you.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you. Now we're going to hear from Nicole. Nicole's going to do a co-leads report back.
Thanks, Randolph. Welcome, everyone. So we are at the end of the realignment process, right? Next slide, please. We're going to get a consensus on the steering committee charter and the operationalization documents. And for this, we need the steering committee to give both documents their endorsement. Okay. Next. So to do a quick walk down memory lane, during the fall and winter of last year, we received input from the steering committee and subcommittees about what they wanted to see, right? The documents were then drafted, and we showed you those updates at the February steering committee meeting, okay? We then incorporated all of the feedback, right, that was given, and we'll see that most of the changes were actually made to the implementation questionnaire that implementation teams will be able to use when new projects appear and want to support AB 617 through one of the strategies. Okay. Next slide, please. So things to note, right? Text, grammar, and formatting, okay, happened, right? Just to make sure that the document was readable and presentable, okay? And this note here was specifically added just to make sure that the steering committee's was focused specifically on equity inclusion, right? So the steering committee will employ equity, inclusion, and non-discriminatory practices in adopting explicit racial justice frameworks. And this is super important and was caught this week, luckily, by Ms. Margaret. So thank you, Ms. Margaret, for pointing that out. Major updates to the questionnaire. Next slide, please. I'll give you guys some time to read through these 5 before we move on to the next 5. And the updates to the questionnaire were for clarity's sake. And we really appreciate those of you who filled out this survey, giving us additional things to think about. Next slide, please. Any comments from steering committee members about these changes? Or any slides that we need to go back to so you guys can see? Any comments or concerns from participants on this call regarding additional changes that were made to the steering committee charter and the operationalization plan, which we are, for simplicity's sake, going to refer to moving forward as the WOCAP operations guidelines? Next slide, please. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay. We did the work that was asked. Okay, we did that together. It's incorporated and we need to move forward. Can we get consensus from steering committee members? So that'll be a thumbs up. Okay. I'm just scrolling through. And if you're not sure if you're a steering committee member, just go ahead and give us a thumbs up. I like seeing thumbs up.
No thumbs down? Oh, fantastic.
Well, I have one question. Since I wasn't a part of the putting this together, I can go ahead and still give a thumbs up on it? I'm asking.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And I put
Okay.
the links to the full documents in the chat so everyone can reference them on their own time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Randolph, it looks like we have consensus for these documents. Thank you, guys.
All right, congratulate yourselves. You did it. Fantastic. This is some hard work here. This is a lot
Yes.
of work. This is a lot of work. This is a long time, and we know like kind of what it took like kind of to shift from kind of where you were with the subcommittee structure, and then just kind of shifting that that tanker to get to where we are now. But we think that we will be productive, and we did that in order to be able to kind of convey to any new members, any members of the public, any new steering committee members, any new implementation project members, like exactly what we were doing, why we were doing it, and where we were going. And so that now we move to a point where we can kind of do
Better cut these and I'll go back.
community outreach and engagement. And we've talked a lot about that, and I'm going to have Miss Margaret kind of kick this off, just because she has been, really kind of the heart and soul of the community engagement effort for WOCAP. But we really, looking forward, we really want this, and I like to say it's important for this to be a community influence process as much as it is a community engagement, because you're not just participating, like you are lending your expertise to this process. And we just want to make sure that everybody feels like their work here has influence. And so we'll go through, kind of the beginnings of the framework. We won't go through all of the framework, but we will get a start on that and then start getting your input on that. So Ms. Margaret, you want to take it away? Tell us why we're all here.
All right, can I have the slides? Do we have any slides?
No, we're just
Okay.
hearing from you.
Okay,
Yes, we do have slides, but we just want to hear from you for right now.
okay. First of all, thank everybody for being here. I am a second generational West Oaklander. I've returned here almost 1992. And I have been on the go, fingerprints on a lot of different things happening in West Oakland. And also one of the founders and the co-director of the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project. This community engagement process of the AB 617 is all about West Oakland. And we identified from the beginning the who should be engaged in this process of a business that has an address, business person who has an address from West Oakland, a resident, organization that has an address from West Oakland, faith-based community that has an address from West Oakland, a youth or individual that has an address for West Oakland. And we have been, as of COVID had come about, a lot of our West Oakland residents fell off. So now we're in the stage of first going back and ask those who fell off the list of engagement, would they like to come back? And simultaneously, we'll be asking new people about their want to be engaged on the steering committee. That's the first and foremost, the steering committee. And there will be workshops and orientations and trainings regarding AB 617 around the steering committee. And we have 2 phases. Right now, the first phase is finding out about new people, the older people who left simultaneously. Just unfortunately that Alberta just had been in the asked about the steering committee and volunteered, and we said it's a go. But we're starting off first of all about going back and asking people who fell off about coming, and then part of tonight's breakouts would be about those who are here today or tonight, do they have any recommendations for individuals or organizations based in those categories that I laid out?
Awesome. Thanks, Miss Margaret. So again, I may reiterate some of what Ms. Margaret said, but we're going to start. We'd like to have just kind of a succinct description of what it is that we're trying to do with this community engagement plan. And so when we do go into the discussion and when we do get feedback from you, one thing that we'll want is feedback on this statement. There's a lot of words in this statement. And so we may want to, but there's a lot to capture with this. So we may want to kind of just massage this a little. This is the first draft of the kind of the statement, the intro for the community engagement plan. And it states that the WOCAP community engagement plan outlines the goals, objectives, target populations, and methods by which the WOCAP stakeholders will honor community knowledge, build reciprocal channels of communication, invest in partnerships and collaborations, foster West Oakland community leaders, and ensure ownership of the environmental governance process. And so that is kind of our first crack at it. And so we're going to kind of get your feedback on that. And see if there's anything else that we might want to move around, we might want to highlight, or we do want to be succinct with this. And we know that it can't be paragraphs upon paragraphs. And so we'll have you, we'll be hearing from you just a little bit later on that. The goals and objectives of this plan, of course, there's a lot that we need to do with this plan, but we want to boil it down and so we can sequence it. So we can, we can prioritize and we can kind of focus on, our efforts to launch this community engagement plan, but then we also want to lay out the steps moving forward. So the primary goal is to increase and maintain high levels of participations from West Oakland residents, businesses, and organizations on the WOCAP steering committee. That's the overall goal, is to create a framework so that you all kind of have a robust environment for which to do your work. And as Ms. Margaret said, we are first going to re-engage the historical lists of folks who have been involved prior and may not be as involved, and just to let them know that there are opportunities to participate. Then we'll start creating new relationships. We're going to jump ahead with our exercise in creating new relationships, because this is kind of going to be we're going to kind of need to walk and chew gum at the same time here. While there will be an effort to go through the historical lists and recontact those who have been involved, we're also going to be getting input from you all and other sources to create new relationships for additional people who may want to participate. Youth engagement was a large, it was a goal, it was an aspirational goal. So that's going to kind of be our second phase after we get through the historical lists and the new, and really starting the new relationships. The recruiting and supporting youth engagement on the WOCAP steering committee is kind of more than a notion, because because young people require more. Obviously, we want to give them leadership development skills, and we want to create an environment where where their voice can be heard, while we are also supporting them. And I was going to say, Miss Margaret, if you ever want to hop in and jump in,
Okay.
feel free. So you can do that now.
Okay, I just want to add that West Oakland Environmental Indicators is leading the process for the resurging of bringing more people into the steering committee. That's one. Number two, we do have a staff person. Her name is Teron McGrew. She is our staff person who's supporting, who's actually doing the footwork and the dialing of the telephones. I don't dial telephones, but contacting people. And my role is to support her since I was part of the beginning. I was the beginning of establishing all those things that brought together the steering committee.
Thank you kindly. So once we come up with a plan for the youth engagement, because for lack of a better word, the youth will require handlers. And so we are talking with,
Sorry, still trying to print out.
oh, good luck with that. They will have organizations like that. It looks like that is the approach that we're taking, working with organizations that work with young people. And so we engage the organizations so they can kind of handle and manage the youth and provide them the kind of resources that they need to participate in the WOCAP process in a substantive way. And then there's just a general communications piece with this engagement plan. We want to be able to create accessible lines of communications for WOAP to share the activities and accomplishments. That's kind of internally what we're doing. That's with the implementation plan and projects. And so we want to have a way not only to provide information and updates, but we want to have a way to hear from the community. So that's kind of the general goals and objectives. And then just, why are we doing this? There's going to be some general outreach, education and events that happen. We'll want to, and the general information, education and events may be for individuals and groups that are otherwise unfamiliar with the work of WOAP, the district, and the AB 617 process, and give them opportunities to participate in the EJ movement. Part of the purpose of our engagement plan is going to be around recruitment, because we will be recruiting additional steering committee members. And then there's also recruitment for these implementation project teams. And then some of it is just going to be general communications for the existing and upcoming projects as they arise. So we're developing a strategy, and then for instance, Brian is working on a matrix that will show like how we are really reaching out to these different populations. And so we'll be using, kind of a full complement of traditional and electronic and in-person and hand-to-hand methods of getting the information out to folks. And then we'll have a whole suite of tools like materials that we're developing to address these different populations in the different settings that we'll be reaching them. So again, we got a couple of populations, couple of target populations. So the focus is West Oakland residents. Of course, like everyone's input is highly valued, but there does need to be a significant a preponderance of input from West Oakland residents, businesses, and organizations. And as Ms. Margaret said, the individuals and entities that have an address here in West Oakland, and we would like representation from all of the 7 West Oakland neighborhoods. And so that is going to be kind of just a strategy that we're using, identifying the neighborhoods and then recruiting appropriately. Now, again, with the youth, like we're breaking those up a little bit. And as I've said before, everybody is a youth to me at this point, but we are targeting like 2, distinct groups within that. We're looking at high school ages, in that 14 to 18 range, who like, and just as an example, like OUSD has an environmental science academy of young people who are already in, kind of the field, and that is their interest. And they already have, basically handlers in their teachers and the infrastructure at the OUSD. But there are other groups in that age range as well that are doing either social justice work or leadership development work, governance work. And so we'll be recruiting from there. But really, anybody under, any college age and just out of college, we really consider those youth, folks who, may have gone to school for, environmental, these environmental topics and are looking to move into that arena. Miss Margaret?
Take my hand down.
Oh, okay. And so that is the target audiences. And then of course, there's just a whole host of categories, that we can, and that was, okay, your hand went back up.
I'm gonna take it down.
Okay. Think you're just playing with me, Miss Margaret.
No, I'm not trying to do that.
Okay. So we were just identifying, we just started identifying categories of folks to possibly help us hone in on who and how to recruit. And so these are just, kind of some of the categories. Like a lot of these categories are represented here, like that we're looking at, but some of them are not, right? And so there are probably categories that should be on this list that will help us. And then there are some categories here that we know that we're missing people. And so that's how we're going to approach. And that's how we are also going to go about our exercise today. So that is kind of the overview. Can we start by just getting some feedback? Because like the other thing that we heard up until this point, all through the implementation planning and the realignment and all the rest of that good stuff, is that people really wanted to get to the doing of the work, yes, but also just the community engagement. And so this would be the time for folks to kind of weigh in on that. So let's start there, and let me check and see. Okay, I don't know Charles is going to be the first up. All right, Charles, go for it.
Man, I've been sitting here waiting to talk to y'all for the longest. I know most of us, well, I don't want to be dating anybody, but Ms. Margaret did say something about dialing the phone. So I would think that for the youth, that if there was some kind of internship that we could develop for the youth to actually be the ones who form their own community engagement, because they know each other better than we know. And we should let their voice start there. Now, how would you form an outreach team? What methods would you use? And then let them teach us how to do it. We know how to do a lot of the other stuff, but the youth part is going to really be, I think, an important ingredient in growing WOCAP and the cause for environmental justice fighters. So that was just, something. But I think you said we're going to be in breakout rooms, so I'll reserve my other stuff for that. Well,
Let's see here. We discussed this and we were trying to figure out if it was if people wanted to be in group out in the large group or in breakouts. And so I might just take a poll here and we can kind of do this on the fly. We're prepared for either one because sometimes it does help to be in a large group. We're just about right on time. We were supposed to start this section at 6:30. And so does somebody, do people, okay, all right. Albertia says large group. Does anybody feel like that it's just not helpful and they just want to be talk amongst themselves? Or do we want to, I support this approach. Okay. Okay, let's just do that. Let's just do a large group. How about that? Yeah? Okay.
You got Laura to agree that she liked this, so it must be good.
Okay. Let's go with Alverdia first. And you're on mute.
I put my hand up for large group.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
what you wanted me to start with the conversation?
Well, we had one more hand, I think. Did we have one more hand or no? Yes, Miss Wanda.
I know, Miss Wanda.
Yes.
Good morning or afternoon, everybody. Evening. See, this is the kind of day it is.
I know
I
that's
am
right.
laying down. One just point of clarification I'd like to ask. When you say recruit the youth, recruit them for what? To come to these meetings, to offer their input. I love the way the plan sounds. I know one way to reach the kids and anybody is to go where they are versus require them to come to you. So
they will be participants like student government, student councils. It's not going to be a lot. It's just going to be a couple of youth participants on the steering committee.
mm-hmm.
So it is yes, it is. And if anybody wants to say any more on like what the youth participation may look like, but they will be participants in these steering committee meetings. Whose hand was next? I'm sorry, I didn't see whose went up first.
Randolph, I would just add that we are hoping we can get a young person or a group, a youth group, to send a representative to actually be a steering committee member. When we wrote the plan, we had a youth coordinator from the Rose Foundation's New Voices Rising program, and then there were 4 of their program participants who came to almost all the meetings. And we got some feedback from them on how well this kind of work is adapted to young people. And so we're trying to be very thoughtful in how we engage young people and how we tailor the experience to their interest and needs. And so I think we're working on that. We're not trying to dive into it and do it immediately. We think we need some partners and we need some people who work specifically with young people and know how to engage them. So that'll be part of this plan.
So, and we are meeting as a small group. There's a community engagement group within the co-leads. And so if anybody has any thoughts, please share them as we move forward. All right. Any other hands? Charles, yours is up from before?
No,
Oh,
let me take it down now. I don't want to be leaving it up so y'all think I want to talk all the time sometimes. But I like the idea of targeting businesses because they have a viable interest in, in their environment, right? And so I think that that's a good idea. And I do like the way the plan is written. And I don't know how we're gonna continue to proceed in a big group or small groups later on, but I like the idea of us being able to bring high school students in who don't know WOCAP exists, don't realize it exists, or just want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. I would definitely target the high schools. Find out which high schools have environmental programs, which ones don't, which ones have internships, or because people are always trying to get into college on different type of scholarships, and maybe those who are environmentally conscious would like to participate in forming an outreach, a youth outreach plan. Because to be honest, I just really think that time moves so fast and young people have so many different interests that we might not be the ones to tap into. And so I would hope that we can get something like an internship that focus on helping to support those young high schoolers on their way to college, that they need that extra paperwork in their file. And back to the businesses, again, I would like to say that we really should focus on the businesses. They would have to be broken down in different kind of segments though, because all businesses aren't the same. But really focus on the long-term businesses that have been here for a while, and see what their feedback is, because we would probably find out that they're just as concerned about the environmental conditions as anybody else is, but we won't know that until we talk to them. So that's just a little bit of feedback on my behalf.
great. Thanks. Miss Margaret?
Okay, I'm a youth that came out of organizing and community engagement. That's how I started when I was 16 years old. My vision is that how many youth can I give my talent, my experiences, my expertise to be able to carry out these action plans? How many can we also provide developing new leaders in this action plan? Those are the things that I'm looking for, and how we support them learning and while doing and practicing what we put forth in the development of the West Oakland Community Action Plan. That's what I'm looking for.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see here. Okay, so let's take a look at this. We are still right on time. And so let's look at this statement here. I'm gonna read it again and I'm gonna go to the next slide and take any notes. The WOCAP Community Action Plan outlines the goals, objectives, target populations, and methods by which the WOCAP stakeholders will honor community knowledge, build reciprocal channels of communication, invest in partnerships and collaborations, foster West Oakland community leaders, and ensure ownership of the environmental governance process. Let's start with anything missing. Let's make it longer before we make it shorter. Is there anything missing here? And you can just speak up. You're not speaking up.
I mean, it looks good to me. It seems comprehensive. I didn't help write it, so It seems comprehensive.
Yeah, and so this is a combination, the sources, we looked at some historical documents, and we also just looked at where the WOCAP was going and what we were trying to do. And what I was trying to accomplish here is to get people and processes into the statement. You got to give me something. You got to give me something. Missing, add, help me out here. Or is it just perfect?
It's perfect.
What?
Take a win when you can get one, right?
Yeah, right. Take the win. Okay. All right. So that's our statement. That's it. That was too easy.
Yeah.
Okay, categories. What are we missing? And then we're going to go back in and figure out, we're going to do the who and why, because we need to know who based on kind of where they're coming from, but then we also need to know why they are well suited for this body, right? Understanding that we want to focus on West Oakland residents, but there also be other ways for other people to participate. Laura?
Oh, my dog waited for me.
Laura
Perfect
just
timing.
wanted to see
Perfect.
the
Hang on.
statement again.
What's that?
Laura wanted you to go back to the statement.
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go.
They're
Okay. Oh yeah.
taking your medal away.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. I was just wondering. No, that's good. No. Okay. No, I got it. I'm pasting it. As I was looking at the approach, you identified I guess you identified what the underlined targeted audience was as it relates to a certain, missing piece, or just a piece where there's more opportunity to engage in. And I didn't see how it mirrored the diversity of the entire stakeholder body in this one statement, but now I see it. So you're good. I'm good with it.
That was a false alarm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay. It's good.
Miss Wanda.
Yeah, pardon.
Wanda?
I still want on the end, like I love that statement. I think it's beautiful. I think it's fully fleshed out. I still want to see to do what? Like, I see the plan to do what is the action,
Yeah.
right?
Can
To
I-
tie the-
So
Reply to that. They would also be sitting on, we also like to include them sitting on some of the action themes.
Yeah, but I don't think we can build that in. I think it's a little bit of a compounded and complicated statement, but it does say, we want to reach these populations, and we want to. One action is honor their knowledge. Another is
Right.
build communication channels, invest in partnerships. So we're not talking specifically about recruitment in this statement. Recruitment comes from building relationships and
Right.
opening channels, and I think that's it. If you have something really more concrete you would like it to say, this would be a good time to recommend it.
Right.
And-
No, I guess I'm just asking, like, I would like to hear it say, and ensure ownership of the environmental process, governance process, so that we can what? Is my
So
question.
you're looking for an outcome of these, whatever these
Yeah.
actions are, right?
Right.
Okay.
It's an engagement plan, but why do we even need the plan?
Right.
Right? What are you going to do when you have those community people
Yeah.
engaged?
And we're
Yeah.
into really long compound sentences that go on and on and on with a bunch of commas. I didn't put any semicolons in there.
Yeah.
We would have gotten.
I like
big
those.
trouble.
They help.
I
Well,
know
for
they
the-
do. Yes.
For the
Beth?
purposes of this statement, we might just add a few more words that says, for the purpose of implementing the West Oakland AIR plan, the West Oakland
Oh,
Action Plan, because that's
really
what
good
this
for
is.
me. Right.
That's good for you? Okay.
Yes. And then the last thing I would say is on your next list, youth are implied in youth serving organizations and in schools. But what I know about both of those groups is that that's often the adults and not the kids. And I might suggest adding youth as their own discrete category.
So we'll get to that in a moment, and I'll give you a thought about that. Beth?
If you go back to the statement, this suggestion may hopefully clear up some things, which is the statement, I think, is trying to do two things. One, the first part of it is describing what the plan contains. And the second part is sort of describing the goals of the plan. So we might just want to, or the purpose of the community engagement. So we might just want to split it up into two separate statements. One saying this plan does the following, and what we hope to achieve through community engagement, something about, what you have in the second part.
What?
That is some
Okay,
really-
one semicolon coming up, right?
No. Just like you would have two different
I
headers.
know,
One would be
I
like
got you. I got you.
engagement plan purpose and like
Yes.
engagement.
No, I
outcomes
got
and
you.
ratings.
Two sentences. No, I got it. And the way that I was thinking about it as I was writing it was just like Beth said, like kind of the overview, because this is the community engagement plan and doesn't have anything to do with kind of doing the work. It's literally just this community engagement plan and what is it? And then I just tried to use a bunch of verbs, right, towards the end to say what it was doing, the more active verbs: building, investing, fostering, and ensuring. So good, we got those two. Do we have other hands? Other hands?
Yes. Well, I'll raise my hand.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, in that paragraph when you're saying engaging the West Oakland community and leaders and so forth, I think that might be a good spot to include the youth in there, and that's the all inclusiveness.
I'm sorry, one more time.
Where it says we're going to engage the West Oakland community leaders and so forth. Put it in, I think adding in we intend to reach out to youth, include youth in there.
It's actually, everybody's included in the word target populations. I want folks to understand this is not a manifesto. This plan is actually a tool for us. What we want to write down how we will engage people. It's not a philosophical statement. So this is sort of a cover statement. Subsequent pages of the plan will say, oh yeah, to reach youth, we do this, to reach business, we do that, to reach somebody else, that. We use Twitter this way, we use things. So I don't want us to get hung up on the language of a front end statement of the purpose of the plan, because it'll wind up being the plan if we just start listing out everything, right?
Well, that was the only addition.
Mm-hmm.
I understand.
I would respectfully agree with that too. That if you put the kids up front, we'll keep them up front.
Okay.
Okay, explicitly.
And I will add also that y'all are going to have to help us on that, because we had kids working on this. They worked on it for a year. I got a lot of respect for them. But when it was over, we surveyed them and said, how'd it go? And what did you think? They only had two things to say. They said it was boring and it wasn't designed for us. And so getting youth involved in public policy creation and implementation is a tough task.
Yeah.
And so it's more than just saying we're going to do it. It's like, how are we going to do it? Where are those youth? How do we work with their schedules? You know, they might be here for a year and then they go to college. How do we, I don't know how that's done, frankly.
Yeah.
When I say we need partners to help us, it's because we don't know how to do it. And I don't want to start from scratch, reinvent the wheel on this. A lot of people know how to work with youth. So we're going to be looking to all of you to help us find the relationships and the resources so that we can actually make the youth participation more than words in a paragraph. That's my fundamental feeling here.
Yeah, well, Randolph did mention a really viable group that OUSD has, the Environmental, I guess, Academy or whatever. And I think that would be a perfect place to start because they are already engaged in the environmental justice and things like that. So it wouldn't be as boring to them because they're already in it. So I think that would be a perfect start. And just find out how many of these students are in West Oakland, but they don't have to be, but it would be great if they were.
Yeah, I think it's at boy, I'm losing it. I think it's Tech. I think the Environmental Academy is at Tech, but we'll dig into that. And then there's
That's
leadership
West.
groups and social justice groups who really may be interested in the things that we're championing here. So these are categories. Let me just check. Any more hands?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I was saying about us being. We might not be the best ones to message them, and that's why I was saying that to give them ownership, we want to allow them to develop their own outreach because they'll know better how to get people involved than we will.
Sure.
And
Sure.
yeah, them going to those schools or, we could also reach out to the colleges because the
Yes.
youth are, they consider youth to be 24 now.
Well, we got under 30. So
Okay.
that's squarely a Ute.
Yeah.
And
we got college programs that
correct.
do environmental work.
Correct.
So, I mean, the opportunities are out there for us. I just think that it would be better to let them formulate their own outreach.
And remember, we only need a couple of participants, on this, youth participants on, Taryn.
Thank you, Randolph. First, I want to say that I do work with Miss Margaret. I am a community engagement manager with she and Mr. Bryan. So please feel free to reach out with me with your ideas or contacts. But what I really wanted to emphasize is that we all know that the youth are very hard to attract. But for those of you who have social media platforms, they're really into social media, specifically Instagram. So if you wouldn't mind utilizing your platforms and letting them know, I don't mind designing it with you. We're going to be, we're designing and updating our social media platforms at WOCAP because the youth, that's where they get all their information, especially around the environment. I have spoken to them and they'll tell you the amount of hours that they are on social media. But just to know, laughingly, that Facebook is the older adult social platform. So they're not there, but they are on Instagram. So if you have those platforms, please use them. And then I also wanted to say too that to Charles's point about internships, what most of the students, what that's called are community services. So if you have some students and they're looking for some community services and credits to graduate, we can definitely work that out. And I'm sure that we can accommodate anything, but social media is everything. And please utilize those social media platforms. And Ms. Margaret will inform you as well as Mr. Bryan and I about our platforms as they are updated and up and running properly. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have full access to my MySpace page.
That's like the rotary phone.
That's right. No, but do not do that. A youngster even say anything about MySpace.
Yes.
They're gonna wonder what country you came from.
Yes. What? What's that? Yes. And I've already gotten it from my 16-year-old that's Facebook is for old people. So I got you. I got you. So let's with our last 18 minutes, let's just do some brainstorming. So again, you've got the categories. You don't have to use these. You kind of know where we're going with this, but maybe we'll just do some. You can just popcorn. You can either put it in the chat, or raise your hand, or just blurt it out. And we really want to know what makes them a good participant or a candidate. And we're looking for folks to engage in the process, possibly on the steering committee, but just possibly just part of the process. All right, go. We've got 17 minutes. Don't everybody talk at once. You start calling on people. Okay, Fern, thank you. Appreciate that.
I already put it in the chat, but I'll just flag that there was a community-based monitoring project that Ms. Margaret and Brian worked with UC Berkeley researchers and EDF, and we recruited over 100 residents and local businesses to host low-cost air monitors, and that list with contact details still exists. So that would be mostly residents.
I just sent it to Ron.
Okay, Teron, who is that? We just want to name.
Margaret, just send it to that list to Ron. Thank you, Fern, for reminding me.
Okay. Next. Here, let's see if that sparks your neighborhood. So like we can easily just kind of, for some of these, just kind of do a Google search. There's probably a list of nonprofit, community-based, faith-based organizations, neighborhood and homeowners associations. But it would be some of them, like business and industry, we're going to need to, we want ones. And the only thing that I was going to say about the youth and the community service is that we actually want people who are in, they are studying in that field, as opposed to, I know I've been in a position to have to get some hours in. And so we really want people who are engaged. And so it certainly could work. But again, like business and industry, like who would be of value to this process that is not already in the process? Labor organizations, health organizations, environmental groups. Do we have any thoughts there?
I'm still trying to figure out how come we don't have Kaiser sitting at this table. The amount of funding that Kaiser has, the environmental impact that Kaiser has, it just seems to me like Kaiser would be a perfect marriage partner in this dance.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. Because of their health focus. What else?
How about Alameda County?
So which department there? We've got Alameda County Public Health.
Yes, public health.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, that's where it would be.
And we have had a public health representative prior, correct?
Yes, Sony's here. She's on.
Oh, hey, Sony's here. Hey, Sony.
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
Yes, you are. I'm just
So county health is on the steering committee.
Okay.
County government, we have had representatives from elected officials in the past. We have not had them recently. For our previous council member, we all know Bridget Cook. Well, Bridget was obviously worked for the council member as a community engagement person, and she had a seat on the steering committee. But council member Fife's office has not participated. We haven't reached out and briefed her and tried to drag her staff over to these meetings, and that's probably something we should be looking at as well. We were able to engage Councilmember McElhaney because when we kicked this whole thing off 3 years ago, we held the convening meeting in City Hall because we wanted to make it easy for the folks to walk down from their offices. And that's how we got the mayor and Councilmember McElhaney and maybe somebody else, I think the city administrator, William Gilchrist from Planning and Building. They all came down and took a minute to make a statement about the importance of the work. And that was kind of how we hooked McElhaney's office. But we need to do some work with Fife's office. So if any of the steering committee members have a good relationship there and can get a phone call response to something, you know, I think we probably should put the invitation out.
Mhm.
Hey, Brian, this is I'm sorry, this is Sony. I'm part of a steering committee for the West Oakland Community Collaborative, and we actually just had Carol in a meeting on Monday, along with her chief of staff, Tanya Love. And she is very, very invested in West Oakland, of course, being the representative on the city council. However, that being said, I really think that she would be open to meeting with the steering committee or maybe a few key people from the steering committee to see exactly what type of resources and services she could provide for us. Because when we had the meeting on Monday, she's so passionate and she has so many resources that we're not aware of. And then actually leveraging funding that the city has specifically for communities and for development. There's a lot of resources, and she's actually oh, hold on.
Sony, what was that?
I'm like somebody stepped on the parakeet.
I have 5 cats, and they all ran into my office for some reason and saw each other.
Okay. We just wanted to know what species that was.
I'm sorry, they're barracudas, I should say. But yeah. So, but what I was saying is that I really think that that's a great idea to get Carol Fife's office involved, even if it's just her chief of staff or her community engagement coordinator. But there's a lot of resources that she actually offered to us. And being that we're getting ready to be on the ground and actually doing some action, I really think we can leverage what she has available. And so I'd be happy to try and set that up if we can get some people showing some interest in participating in that meeting. I can see if we could set up a date and time, and whoever's available, you know, we can all jump on.
Yeah, I know, Tanya. I'll be happy to join in on that call.
Tanya's great. Yeah, actually, yeah. So that would be wonderful. I'll reach out and see what times might be available within the next week or so.
And that's through the West Oakland. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's so we got Sony. Let's hear from Colin.
Hey there. Yeah, I want to second Wanda's comment in the chat about representing the folks at Kavan Wood. Definitely an important stakeholder in the West Oakland air quality. And also really happy to see labor organizations on your list. think you could definitely leverage the many members that they have to show up for like certain city council actions or other advocacy efforts, and also just like potentially tapping into people who work at the port but can't live near the port for probably air quality or housing price issues. So I think there's definitely a kind of like a latent demand within waiver organizations for this kind of work.
Thank you. And Jason, you've just been recruited in the chat. Did you know that? Jason is the Tree Corps youth leader. Yes? So you've just
I
been,
was just introducing him why I could.
well, no, he's been recruited.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's how it work around here.
Yes, we'll be back in touch, Jason.
And I would like to. You want to go, Jason? Go ahead.
I don't really have anything to say. I was just just listening, but I heard what you said and look forward to talking to you.
Awesome. We appreciate it.
I wanted to, Randolph, I wanted to support the Cobb on Wood and recognize that partnerships don't have to be traditional. That we look at who has a common interest where, you know, their survival is based on working with us. And so, you know, they just had the big fire down there. There's been numerous fires down there, which all add to poor air quality. The colder it gets, it adds to poor air quality. And these are people who have a vested interest in each other's survival down there. And so I would hope that when we look at what kind of partnerships we could establish, that we think outside the box, you know, because this is going to be a creative type of thing. And if we could just get one person from these many different organizations to show up and hear the work that we're doing, you know, that could light a fire under somebody else. So as far as partnerships are concerned, I really hope that we can be creative, think outside the box, and first of all, recognize what our mutual interests are. That should be the first thing that we think about is each other's mutual interest and how we can leverage that.
That's great. So we've got a few more minutes. Do we have any additional thoughts looking at the categories? Who, like, we still need here. Colin mentioned that this is a good idea. We need to fill that one out. Business and health. We've got Kaiser under health organizations, other environmental groups. Alverdia, you're working with the NCPC in West Oakland?
Yeah, the NCPC and the RAC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And I've, again, I'm losing my brain here. My friend with the who manages the NCPCs was very interested in our work here. Any other thoughts? So you can, oh, I'm sorry, Miss Margaret.
Okay, I just want people to remember all these categories that we had. This is about West Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to make sure the people, whomever they are invested about West Oakland and these environmental justice issues.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want for people to get, we already have these strategies that's been signed off that we need to be carrying out. And we just got through going through this alignment. So we got to focus, and we got to be able to perfect the focus for implementation and expediting. And that's what we want to bring people to the table to work within those frames that we have already established.
Mhm.
Now, if we're gonna go through a blank slate to bring people in, that's something different. But right now, we already have building blocks. We have these blocks, and I want the audience to understand we already have these blocks.
And West Oakland Neighbors would, you know, is a community group as well. And I know Ray Kidd is really into the environmental justice and things. So we need to just look at what we have within the community that's already doing and supporting.
That's what we
And I'm gonna go back to the facilitator. We had 2 more presentations that we had to go for. That's about the truck fair and also about the Prescott Greening Project.
We are right on time. It's about 7:20. I'm just gonna do this real quick. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, there you go. So this is what we heard from this section. Beth has graciously been capturing your thoughts. Thank you, Beth. And so this is what we've heard, and we're going to be taking this feedback and like kind of begin working in our small group and filling out that community engagement plan. And then sharing it periodically. And so over the next months, we can have something solid. But we will be, again, moving forward with the outreach and engagement as we are developing the plan. So thanks a lot. Thanks, Beth, and thanks for all of your comments. We are going to move. Do you want to take the lead on these?
Are you talking to me?
Uh-huh.
Sure. So we have invited 2 of our implementation projects that have already gotten underway to present. So first, Fern, and whoever else wants to jump in, probably Brian. I don't think Fern has any slides, so but she'll be discussing the zero emissions trucker fair. And then after Fern, we'll get a presentation from Brent Bucknam on the Prescott Greening. So Fern, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. My update will just be a few minutes. And there are a few other steering committee members who have been joining in the planning of the trucker fair as well, like Bill Booty and of course Brian and Miss Margaret. So please do chime in if I miss anything crucial. So I think most of you would already know this idea of a zero emission trucker fair came out of the what used to be the Port and Freight subcommittee. Currently, the lead partners for planning the fair is WOCAP and a partner called Green for All, plus a few members of the steering committee, including EDF as well. And then there are also other new partners involved in the trucker fair planning, like CalSTART and Earth Justice and others. So I'll just quickly cover the goals that have been developed. Sorry, looking at my notes. So the main objectives for the trucker fair is a couple of folds. Firstly is to really kind of provide a platform for independent truckers and small fleet owners to have the opportunity to see electric truck models in person, learn about different financing options and available grant programs, and also to connect with manufacturers and decision makers, policy makers, grant makers to share their priorities. It's also, we're hoping that the trucker fair will sort of advance kind of, I guess it's kind of like an educational event, and to try and uplift relevant policy asks that truckers may see, kind of what are their needs and priorities in order to really make the transition. And then the key audience, as I've already mentioned, not surprisingly, independent truckers and small fleet owners. But the current thinking is the trucker fair we would also invite, and the fair would be open to community members and other organizations that support the zero emission transition of trucks. The current plan is also to invite zero emission truck manufacturers, agencies like CARB and air districts who provide grants, also utilities. And then lastly, in terms of date and location, we're tentatively planning for April, although April is just around the corner. So I wonder if we might have to rethink that. It's coming up fast. And the lead partners have been talking to Prologis, who may, about potentially sponsoring a site for this fair, because the fair would probably require quite a bit of space. But we were still waiting to hear from them, so we have not secured a site yet. Brian, Bill, anyone else who might have been involved, please chime in.
Pretty much covered it, Fern. It is an aggressive date for April from where we are right now. But definitely on the trucking side, we're very excited to see the zero emission trucks. We did have the demos day for Hyundai for their hydrogen trucks, and that was exciting to see that the trucks are in production, and they're going to be shipping out some trucks in June of 2023. They're going to be arriving here in Oakland, and they're going to operate at the Port of Oakland. But there are some drawbacks to them. It's the first version. They're very heavy, and that's what the drivers experienced, that they're heavy trucks. But on the other side, they got comfortable with the hydrogen, because they had a lot of questions about, do these things blow up? The tanks, and the engineers there were really good at explaining things and how the standard is. It's safer than gasoline because of all the standards that they're putting in. But we're really excited to see some electric trucks come and getting their prices down, because right now at $450,000 per truck, it's unattainable for us here at the port. So it's going to be a key thing that we get a lot of people motivated and get a lot of orders in, so that way we can see the truck prices drop down.
Yeah, I think that pretty much says it. The goal here, we call it the Oakland Trucker Fair, and not like the electric truck demo project or something, because what we want to do is let the truckers know from the name of the event right through that that we're concerned about them, and we want something that's for them. So this thing is we're planning it. It will be like a family picnic day, but there will be all these information tables and maybe some presentations about financing, and there'll be trucks there for people to look at and climb up and sit in. And so the idea is for it to be kind of a fun thing for truckers and their families, as well as a very informative thing, that because we actually have to help these independent truckers stay in business. If it's just left to them trying to figure out these big government programs, many of them won't be able to make it. And so that's the goal here. And if y'all have One thing I want to ask about is if y'all have ideas, if you have people who do like, who are good at it, not just your cousin who likes to cook sausage, but somebody who's in business with a mobile barbecue, or people who do bounce houses, or people who do children face painting, or people who do that kind of stuff that will make this a happy family event. Let us know, because we're looking for local small businesses that we can draw into this and have them be part of it. Thanks.
Just real quick, the Port of Oakland has.
Excuse me, my hand was up.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if anybody to see it. Did you see it,
It's
Randolph?
it's sometimes it's caught in that little frame.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so we don't see it.
Okay, sorry, Sonia. But I would just want to make sure, based on our strategies, how we have connected strategies around trucks emission reduction. And this is one reason why we are having this truckers fair, because we do have strategies and relationships around emission reduction, and having those charging facilities available for electric trucks. I just want people to start that. That's part of the connection. That's part of our connection. It is in our strategies.
Thanks. And we've got and we'll hear from Sony and also Julia Luongo. Put her contact information in the chat around this topic. So if you could reach out to her. Sony?
Yeah, I was just going to say that the Port of Oakland has a small grant available for something exactly like this. So I'll get that information, and we might be able to get that funding to pay for the barbecue and the jumpers and the clowns to make it a really nice community event, because the focus is to provide funding, for the West Oakland community in small resources for a community event. So I'll look into that and let the committee know what the process is for it.
The contact is either Brian or I right now.
Okay, that sounds good, because they're actually the last time they had the grants, nobody applied. Absolutely nobody applied. And so they had all this money that went nowhere. Of course, it was, I think during COVID, or the year that COVID started. So this is the first time that the grant is being reoffered since COVID. And they just really want to make sure that they have people applying for the funds. So I think there's a super, super, super good chance for us to get this money.
Sounds good. We're not embarrassed to ask for money.
Awesome. So we're going to move to Brent, but before I do that, again, a lot of people came in after. Please sign in, and the link is in the chat. Do we have any more on the trucks, or do we want to move to Brent? We ready?
Let's move on.
All right, Brent.
Thanks, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Great.
Let me get the screen sharing going. I am disabled from screen share.
Really?
That might be, I don't know if that's you, Randolph.
Randolph, maybe you need to stop sharing your screen.
Yeah. Give it a go.
There, I'm still, it says host disabled attendee.
Brent's not a co-host yet.
He is.
Someone just
weird.
made me a co-host, which was, I saw pop up.
Yes, you are a co-host. Okay, you are now the host. Don't abuse the responsibility. Give
Try
that a
not
shot.
to here. It says I'm still disabled. I can, I guess I could just share the pres with one of you two.
Could you?
Or I don't know if someone needs to go into settings, maybe. This has happened to me before, so.
Yeah. Could you is it a Google Doc or?
Yeah, I'll just ping you guys on it.
Okay. And I'll,
You want me to send it to you,
please,
Randolph?
please.
Cool. All right. I think I just shared you.
And are you?
It's at your RVA Creative.
Oh, okay, great.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. Should be there. Cool. Well, and this may work because anyone that actually knows me as Randolph's opening it knows that I have a tendency to generally have 200 to 300 slides when I have an 8-minute presentation. So I have tried to behave for Beth, and I tried to make a presentation that can be achieved in 8 slides.
Wow.
Which is remarkable for me, but I do then have 40 others if we have time. No, I'm joking. That said, some people, especially those who may have been in some of the health and living buffers breakout groups, have seen stuff in more depth, and obviously many folks on this call have been involved in some of the bigger Adopt Oakland work. What I wanted to try to do is just in the 5 or 6 minutes that it was allotted, give the exact overview of this specific Prescott greening project that we just got funding for. And it seems like with Beth and Brian, we're sort of also going to be one of the guinea pigs, essentially, as far as the new implementation project. So happy to be a guinea pig. Tell us when we're doing things wrong. We want feedback, we want guidance, and we want help. So that said, I'm going to give a little bit of just an overview of the project and realize that it's a 2-year project. We're going to be coming back to the steering committee numerous times and have hopefully longer presentations too. But I didn't know if you wanted to give a 2-second intro, Brian, since this is a collaborative project. But do you just want to give the 30-second background or 2 minutes, whatever you'd like?
Sure. It's I can do that. This goes back a few years, 6 or 8 years when we started Adapt Oakland with Brent and our friends at Hyphy Design Labs and Urban Biofilter. We started looking at, they were looking at building tools for planners to help them understand how to use, how to put green infrastructure, which is kind of like not just a tree, but how do you design big civil engineering projects to be, to reflect climate needs and environmental needs and pollution, to help reduce heat and pollution and all those things that we know, we need to be doing. So we jump forward a little ways now, and we get into the WOCAP. And one of the strategies in the WOCAP, might be strategy number 1, was to look at a pilot project to green the freeway and the area here on the frontage road. Kind of freeway, frontage road are kind of almost interchangeable, but that's not actually physically true. And so we started with a project that would have attempted to reduce pollution exposure for the folks who were going to be in this new housing project there at the old Phoenix Iron Works there in the bend of the freeway. Now, that project hasn't moved forward yet, but that was the original thought. And then as we talked about it with people, more and more people were interested. Caltrans was interested because trees and plants can absorb stormwater. The county got interested. We made an application to MTC about 2.5 years ago, and they awarded us $300,000, but it had a 2-to-1 match, so we had to go find $600,000 somewhere. So we worked for a while with the county, and eventually ACTC was willing to match that. And then the port came forward and said they would throw in $50,000 because they have an interest in it. And it all ties together with the city's goals of having this be a designated truck route so that the West Oakland Truck Management Plan can move trucks out of the neighborhood and onto a designated route. So this particular road and this particular project have had has taken on not quite a life of its own, but it has gotten a lot of traction with a lot of people, which means it has the potential to attract a lot of money. And perhaps the vision is completely re-envision what that frontage road looks like and how it interfaces with the west side of the community. So I'll leave it at there. There's lots of questions you might have, but I'm going to give the last 4 minutes to Brent.
Great. So yeah, I've been working with Brian and Margaret for over a decade now. I unfortunately decided to move into a property across the street from Brian, and then being interested in environmental remediation and cleanup and running an engineering firm, got sucked in. So it's been awesome and exciting. And so we decided to make a partnership, which was essentially to say, we've got an environmental justice group that is doing great work. We're an environmental engineering firm with a mission-driven goal. How do we work together to create ideas ourselves from the community to improve the community, right? Instead of just waiting for others to do so. So if you want to flip ahead, Randolph, in 2016, weird, yours is slightly different than mine. That's all right. But anyway, I don't know why yours is, the order is slightly different, but anyway, I will get to there. It's weird. I don't know why. That's fine. Anyway, keep going. I can roll from here. But anyway, basically, in the Owning Our Air plan, as everyone I think knows, the goal is to ultimately reduce particulate matter pollution and health impacts from that. And we've been doing research now for 5 years, over 10 years, around green belts and urban infrastructure design, being able to try to help meet some of those reductions. And so while it's still an innovative project and we can't prove reductions, we've done now tests in 5 or 6 different cities and are showing, amazingly, if you really design vegetation right, you can remove almost 30% of emissions near a freeway. Some of our early models along Prescott are showing that we could potentially remove half of this 1.7 micrograms of pollution just through efficient green belts next to the road. So the ultimate goal is to really start to use this as a pilot along Prescott to then hopefully also implement in other places that we have truck impact areas. But if you want to flip to the next slide, Randolph, essentially, if folks remember who've been along the path the whole time, there was a bunch of modeling done, and as well as the data collected by Alameda that drove sort of highest impact areas. We chose to focus on Zone 1 being one of the highest impact areas for these grants. And as Brian was saying, we did the first Adapt Oakland plan, I think in 2016 or 17. So some of it was a little ahead of AB 617, but we've been using the data from AB 617 to prioritize where we focus. So essentially, this whole grant is really focused on improving air quality for everyone in Zone 1, which is one of the most impacted areas. If you want to flip, Randolph, try to go quicker. This data was also sort of corroborated by the Alameda data. Go ahead and flip again, Randolph, as well as Kaiser Permanente data. And I think one of the really interesting things we're learning as environmental engineers working on environmental health is that basically even 2 people 3 blocks away from each other are exposed to completely different conditions. And that's why we see some of these unfortunate situations where 2 senior housing developments that are only 4 blocks away have dramatically different impacts. And that's really because we've been finding, you can keep flipping, Randolph, that that microclimate conditions are really important. And it's not just about air quality within the whole neighborhood, but within a specific microclimate. And so basically, I just highlighted here the 4 different strategies that are in the plan that are greening related. Some of them are us collaboratively working with the city on their overall greening plan. a really core component for us since the beginning of the Adapt Oakland process has been actually green jobs training and the creation of green jobs. So a portion of the grant that we got now is actually to create stewardship programs that create green jobs both for local small businesses, minority-owned businesses, as well as students. So I was just really excited to hear all the community outreach discussion around both of those things. And then strategy 12 was really, and strategy 12 and 16 are the ones that really are the focus of this Prescott project, which is essentially we already had this Prescott idea underway as AB 617 was going in, and that's why it became written in as its own strategy. But ultimately, it links to strategy 16 too, which is working with HARB and the Air District to actually just study and prove and understand how and if vegetated buffers are effective at pollution removal. And so the idea was to use Prescott as an opportunity where we could both model those impacts and then actually plant them and then do monitoring and really use it as a pilot to feedback for future projects as well. I don't know if you want to flip to the next slide, Randolph. So yeah, essentially we had put together this plan called Adapt Oakland with the IP in 2016. Flip to the next slide. One of our pilot projects, ironically, was exactly in this focus area that we found to have high pollution in these models. Part of that was because we had seen that it was a sunken freeway and a major sort of interchange. And so if you just flip quickly, I think the high level story is essentially one more down. What we've learned is what we've learned is trees can effectively block pollution. We're working on studies with NSF, NIH, many different researchers, but a lot of it has to do with how you design that vegetation. So what we're finding in places with high pollution, typical trees that we're planting in communities like big canopy trees can actually trap, which is shown on the right here, can trap pollution down at pedestrian level and make pollution worse. Whereas designing buffers that you might be used to more on a farm or a hedgerow can actually buffer pedestrians and houses from that pollution. So this is sort of the impetus for a lot of the research we're doing. If you want to just flip to the next two, buildings and other structures can also change and impact pollution. So jump to the next one, Randolph. Basically what we put together was a plan to tackle 2 or 3 different properties, that being, the green highlighted property here is Caltrans owned land. The orange and yellow properties are city owned land or the frontage road. The lower blue and dark red are 7th Street. And then the purple is essentially the entire impact zone 1. And so essentially we're trying to look at interventions primarily on frontage road and on Caltrans, that by buffering the pollution, we can hopefully impact everyone in this purple impact zone. And while we're going to target planting along those freeways and right-of-ways, we're also going to work to do planting in the neighborhood. So if you just jump one more down, basically, as Brian mentioned, we got funding from ACTC and MTC. That funding just kind of come through the beginning of this year, and it's essentially laid out as a 2-year process. What we're hoping to do is actually, if possible, be able to do it more efficiently and quickly, but the whole idea is that we spend the first year working with technical advisors. We have partners at Caltrans and the city, stormwater departments, DOT, and others we're working with, as well as working with all of you on sort of community participatory design to both gather data, create representational models, develop different streetscape and buffer design strategies, bring those back to you guys. We also look at, we're going to look at modeling traffic and pedestrian safety on these roads, as well as stormwater impacts. And the real idea is to say, how can we totally redesign these streets to mitigate the impacts from those streets and the freeways next to them. And so it will be about a year-long design process that will be kind of coming back to you guys and others And then the intention is in the next year, we hope to actually be able to start submitting permits, getting environmental review, getting review from city and Caltrans and others, and actually then move into starting to build and plant some of these areas. So that's kind of the overview. I obviously have 300 slides, could show you guys, but just wanted to paint the basic picture for now and leave room for questions. One other thing too, just before we dove into that is we're very much interested in a progressive community outreach process. And we're obviously interested in following the framework that's being laid out here. The other thing we're trying to do is also try to work with, in addition to AB 617, we're trying to use the project to bring together a lot of tree planting communities, some in West Oakland and other places, to really tackle these issues of how we essentially fund greening and stewardship and green jobs in the area. So I think I will obviously give many more presentations about the project, but one of the things we were really excited about was the interest from AB 617 in youth education, because one of the things we've been doing on the project is working with Common Vision, who Wanda introduced earlier, working with Wanda and Jason to see how we can actually leverage the greening outreach to inform people about air quality and vice versa. And so we've been discussing with them ways we can kind of get some of the curriculum around this greening work into the schools, and then actually, through their Tree Corps program, and then actually try to actually help get the students to get out and do some of the education in the community about the greening, to both plant in their neighborhood in Zone 1 and also to inform people about sort of the frontage road and greening work. And one of our thoughts is that, if we're coming to people on some of the more positive sides, like let's plant trees and do greening and create jobs, maybe people will be more interested than just talking about how bad our air quality is. So maybe it's an interesting tact to rope people into AB 617 as well. So that's kind of the overall, as Randolph's going through, have hundreds of slides. We'll show you guys more later, but please drop any initial questions.
I've never seen a 141 slide PowerPoint.
Oh, this is nothing, Randolph.
Yeah, right. Charles?
Yeah, I was wondering if this was going to, if this has like a guarantee to hire Oakland to participate in this, because I think that providing job opportunities is one of the biggest, I guess you would say, carrots that we could dangle in our community's face to get them interested in, environmental justice issues and to realize the importance of it. And so if this has anything to do with hiring Oaklanders first, I would love to be a part of something like this, because workforce development is very important to me.
Definitely. I agree with you completely. And so our goals are ultimately to have all of the actual planting done by Oakland residents. And, because some of that might be a few years out, we also have the ability to start working with groups like Common Vision, working with groups like Civicor that are already doing some of that work, and really structure and direct the money towards that. So we're 100% in support of that. Even in a bunch of the design and initial stages, like I was just on a call with Common Vision talking about how we might, do some of the outreach and both have like students do some of the graphics, but I was also talking about hiring other small local minority-owned businesses to do some of that other work. So we're really piecing that together. And if we have people that we know that are in design, engineering, community outreach, graphic design, all of those arenas, we still have capacity to hire a bunch of people just even for this first phase. But one of the core components of this first phase is obviously us leading a lot of design and engineering work, but a whole nother chunk is putting together a community stewardship approach, right? One of the big challenges that we have with urban greening is the city of Oakland, and most cities don't have any funding to do it. And so whenever these projects come up, they're like, don't plant more trees because we can't maintain them. And so we wrote that into this grant specifically. Almost 100,000 is to corral different groups over 2 years to actually put a stewardship model together where we could potentially create an endowment or another model that would essentially be able to fund small local businesses and others to do ongoing maintenance and stewardship of this green infrastructure as well. So we'd love, Charles, to have you on that stewardship committee for, specifically, because it's going to be obviously folks from the city like David, who runs urban forestry, folks like Common Vision, who are the nonprofits out doing that work. And then, our goal too is to support small local businesses. Like, do we have minority-owned businesses that do landscape and irrigation work? And, maybe,
awesome.
Maybe immediately they won't, they can't get a bond, but we could help get them get the bonds and things like that. So yeah, that's definitely a huge piece of it for us from the beginning.
And we're going to hear from, is Miss Margaret, is your hand up? As if,
Yes.
as if Charles didn't have enough jobs. Miss Margaret?
I want to add that one of the outcomes, hopefully, is to have a greening forestry master plan for all of Oakland from this project. And being more supportive of how categories of people such as engineers and communities, residents work together. There is a big gap here. It's going to be a learning curve for a lot of people. And also, I would like to add, this was a 3-year campaign for West Oakland environmental indicators and urban biofilters to get to this place. With the support of two of the board members of ACTC. So, and for further references, this project goes back 20 years.
Wow.
Around Gulfport. This is not something that's happened overnight. This goes back 20 years, but to support the real mitigations that we have adopted that Brett has just got to talk about. This was not an easy climb. It's not. Okay. So I don't want people to think this was something that everybody came to a table and was all about kumbaya. It was not. No kumbaya.
That's awesome. Awesome. Do we have other questions, comments on Prescott Greening?
I would just add, some time ago, I asked for input about what this group would like in terms of getting together and community engagement. We put that into a grant, and that grant seeks to bring folks together in West Oakland, specifically Prescott Elementary, provide field trips, not just for the kids, like even simply going to Middle Harbor and engaging them in the nearby environment, but sponsoring community fun projects to engage the youth and engage the elders in the kind of exchange and the experts in exchange, right? So like boat trips with Liam O'Donoghue on the coastline to look at that. Train trips down to Allensworth State Park, right? To see what Empowered Black folks did down there and sharing that with the community to build relationship and deepen engagement on the way to greening and planting trees.
Awesome. Do we have other thoughts?
Go Park.
Hey. Ms. Tamara, do you have anything to say on
I
behalf
had
of
one
GoPort?
thought, just some things some things about the funding in the chat. We did receive TCC funding for phase one of this, which we carried out about 3 years ago, where we went out to the community and Brent developed a bunch of materials just to inform and get perspective. But at that time, the next step would have been some implementation dollars. And at that time, TCC, for some reason, wasn't giving implementation money to West Oakland. And so I don't know, we didn't hit some threshold in pain registry or something, but we didn't get follow-up dollars. So that's why it's taken us a few years to find money to get this rolling, but maybe we could get some money from them now. I don't know. We're always trying, right?
Yeah, and I think, what we realized on this project, I wrote it in the chat, but I can present some of the findings from TCC later. But what we found is getting that smaller chunk of money really allowed us then to do some of the initial work to then convince ACTC why, for example, they should fund us. So I think, what we'll learn from this project is, it takes a bunch of little grants that turn into bigger grants, they turn into more matching grants. And that's probably going to be what the case is for a lot of strategies beyond the ones we've been working on.
Well, I just want to thank you all for being such fabulous participants in this meeting, because it's 7:58, and we are just at the end. Do we have any announcements, like WOCAP AB 617 West Oakland specific announcements? Alicia?
Hi, good evening, everybody. Nice to be here tonight. I wanted to provide an update on the implementation of the truck management plan. The updates to the truck parking regulations and to the truck route update is going to council on March 15th. And so that's, both of those strategies were included in the WOCAP. So just wanted to, put out the news. I think it's good news, particularly the parking. We're really limiting where truck parking will be permitted now, and looking at, enhanced technology to make sure that our parking technicians can efficiently and safely ticket trucks in the future. And so then, the next step will be installing the signs and doing the truck operator outreach. So let me know if you have any thoughts or questions. But this is it's taken a while, and frontage road has certainly come up as a controversial topic, and we did kind of negotiate an agreement with the port where they would lead a kind of a community process. And so we've tried to come up with a policy proposal that is, sort of meets the goals of the truck management plan, but also is responsive to community feedback. So that's my update. Thank you.
Awesome. You want to close us out, Ms. Margaret?
Yes, I wanted to send forward a new report from the World Health Organization on that we are going to experience more emission health problems. And I'm gonna send it to Nicole and to Beth to distribute to the membership.
Awesome. Look at that, 8 o'clock. Timely. You guys are great. It was an exciting meeting. Wasn't that exciting? That's fantastic. Awesome.
Better at this, Randolph.
What'd you say, Charles?
I say you're getting better at this, man.
Hey, I'm trying. I just see a screen full of cats. I'm just trying.
I second that, Randolph.
No, that's great. Great work. Let's get some community engagement work in. We're going to be moving into the actual implementation of the implementation projects We're going to keep the continuum going, the momentum around this work, and you all should be extremely proud of yourselves. So we want to thank you, and we will talk to you soon and see you next month.
And Brent, keep me in mind for that job, that getting people work, man. I love doing that.
Well, we'll put you to work. Don't you worry.
Exactly. Like I said, like he
Thanks,
needs another
everyone.
job.
Our job, man.
All right. Yeah.
Night, everyone.
Mini job. Mini
Thanks,
job.
everyone.
All right.
You guys did
Bye.
a good job too.
Bye-bye.
All right, have a good night.
You too.
Night, everyone.